Hello everyone, I hope that you're doing amazing wherever you are in the world. My name is Boom Shaka and I welcome you to my channel. As always, I'm really grateful that you're listening, subscribing, and commenting. I really appreciate the support. And of course, if you want to support me further, you can do that by going to my Patreon or Ko-fi link. They're both in the description below. In this one, I wanted to keep on going with my series about writing and the dilemmas and traumas that writers face on their journey of writing. One of the things that I've noticed about myself particularly, and I know that this is a term that has been used many times by writers, famous authors that have been speaking about their own journey, and the term is self-sabotage. I know in general, not only writers, but most humans will self-sabotage or sabotage themselves in the journey towards perfection or in the journey towards creativity. Whatever they're trying to do, we have a tendency as human beings to sabotage ourselves on the particular journey that we're on. I know that I've spoken about self-sabotage many times before, but I wanted to speak to you guys about self-sabotage in terms of writing. I'll share a quick story from one of the recent books that I was writing. So I've just finished, I've spoken about this before, but I've just finished writing a book on self-love. Now, of course, when I first started thinking about writing this book, my mind piped up, my ego piped up, my resistance piped up and said, "What? You want to write a book about self-love? You, this person that you're looking at right now, boom, shaka, you want to, what? What are you talking about? You have no idea what self-love means. You hated yourself for decades. Like, how can you even speak about self-love? You're not an expert and you have no idea what you're talking about, right?" And so, of course, my resistance piped up, and it always does, no matter what I'm writing about. Right now, I'm writing a book about healing the land, or healing ourselves by healing the land. And I love that subject. And it's like I'm extremely passionate about it. But as soon as I started writing the book, of course, the same thing happened. My resistance popped up and started saying, yeah, right, you are going to write a book about this. What do you know about the land? What do you know about anything to do with anything? So our censor, our critic, that voice in our head, perhaps it's the voice of your parent that used to be very critical, perhaps the voice of your sister, or of a teacher or a caregiver, someone in your life that was particularly harsh towards you and whose voice you carry around in your head. Well, most probably it's an amalgamation of many different critical voices throughout your life, right? So it might be an amalgamation of your grandparents' voice, or and your mother's or father's, or both, or your siblings, your partner, whoever it might be, your teachers. So all of those voices kind of combine together and they form this voice in our head that is the critical voice. It's the censoring voice. It's the voice that tells us or protects us, pretends to protect us from doing anything new because, it's dangerous to do anything new. So it's protecting us, but not really protecting us because it's really holding us back. And we're not able to do the things we want to do because we're fearful or filled with fear because of this critical voice. So of course my censor was like, no, of course you have no idea what you're talking about. You don't even know the first thing about self-love. What are you going to write 40,000 words about it? Are you insane? You've lost your mind. Don't do it. You have no idea what you're doing. And so, of course, my resistance piped up. And I know that it's going to pipe up. It's one of those things that I'm kind of prepared for now. In the beginning, I would not have been prepared for it. And I'll be like, oh, no, yeah, you're right. Actually, I have no idea what I'm talking about. I can't even believe I dare to think about this. I'm glad that you protected me. I'm glad that you saved me from this madness. I'm not going to write the book. Of course, I'm not going to write the book, right? So, I mean, that's what I would have said previously when I did not realize that this was resistance speaking. But now I know that it's resistance speaking, so I'm like, you know what? You're right. I don't know anything about self-love, but I know a little bit about self-love because I have gone through the journey. I might not be able to write 40,000 words on it. I have no idea. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But let's see. I want to write the book, and if it doesn't come out the way I want it to, then we can just chuck it. We can just throw it in the garbage bin, and no worries at all. But if it does come out properly, then hooray! Like, I've written a book on self-love, and this is something that I wanted to do. So I have ways of kind of placating my censor, and with this argument that, we would just chuck it, there is nothing that I can say. It's like, all right, fine, I guess. I mean, yeah, write it, and if it's terrible, then you can just throw it out. What else can it say? There's nothing else left for the censor or the critical voice to say, and so it shuts up for a few seconds, for a few days, for a few weeks. As I get closer to the end of the book, though, as I get closer to finishing up the book, so I was around at I think at 36,000 words. And surprisingly, the book was flowing very well. It was as if I wasn't even writing it. It was like my muse was writing it through me, and it was perfect. It was coming out exactly the way I wanted it to be. And I was actually surprised at how easily the words were pouring out of me. And so I was like, oh, you know what? Actually, this is actually a good idea. I'm glad that I wrote this book. I'm glad I didn't listen to my resistance. I'm glad I'm writing the book. As soon as I start having these thoughts about, oh, this is going so well, I'm so excited, resistance pipes up again. And my self-sabotaging voice this time around pipes up. And usually this happens to me. Now, everyone has a different pattern, right? So some people it might happen at the midpoint. Some people it might happen at the end point, which is usually me. Some people it just happens at the beginning and they sabotage themselves before they even start. So different people have a different pattern. For me, my pattern is that I start sabotaging myself as I get closer to the end. So I might be like 95% there in a task, whatever it might be. It might be something very mundane or something very important to me, but I'll be 95% there, 98% there, right? I'll almost be finished with it, and then I'll sabotage myself. And I do it every single time. I know this is a pattern of mine, and I've done it in my creative work, I've done it in my fitness regimes, I've done it in my meditation routines, I've done it in anything and everything that I do in my life. I do this to myself. So at 95%, 98%, I'm almost finished. I can see the finish line. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and then I'll stop walking. I'll stop writing. I'll stop doing things. I'll sabotage myself. Pretend to get sick, or I'll be like, oh, I'm so tired. I just want to rest. Or I'll think, oh my God, this is useless. I'm not doing a good job of it anyway, so why bother? And so, of course, this happened this time around as well. And so, I'm at 36,000 words. I have 4,000 words left. So literally, I'm at the end point. I'm close to the end. I can see the end goal. And of course, I sabotage myself. So I'm sitting there thinking, you know what? This is absolute garbage. I can't even believe I'm writing this stuff. I can't even believe that I thought I could write this book. Yeah, I've written 36,000 words, but they're all really horrible words. I can't even believe that I'm putting them together in this manner. I'm terrible. I'm a terrible writer. I have no idea what I'm talking about. When just previously, a few days ago, I was like, oh, this is brilliant stuff. I would read my stuff and be like, wow, this is great stuff. So, of course, this was just sabotage talking. And so in my head, I'm like, no, I should just stop. I should just stop. I don't need to write anymore. There's no point. 4,000 words left. What's the point? Those are going to be really crappy words anyway. So why should I bother? I'm wasting my time here. I'm wasting everyone else's time who might even deign to read this book. I should just let go, right? And so, again, as I know this about myself, I know that I sabotage myself. So I know that it's just the voice of resistance speaking. So I just don't listen to it. And I just keep on going. And I'm like, you might be right, but I'm going to finish the book. And then we can see if it's good or not. But for now, I only have 4,000 words left. So let's freaking finish those 4,000 words. So I just went through it. I just kind of pushed through it. I ignored the sabotage voice and I just kept on it and I finished the book. And, I'm leaving it for a bit to congeal and then I'm going to edit it soon. But again, I wanted to share this with you because even though I've written like 23 books already or something like that, I still get this voice of reason, if you want to call it, or the voice of resistance, or the voice that tells me that I'm not good enough. It still pipes up every single time. Yeah. And I know the pattern that it has. It always has the same pattern, which is fascinating to me that it thinks that I'm not going to notice it. But of course, I didn't notice it for the longest time. So of course, it's like, well, she didn't notice it for the longest time. So I'm sure she's not going to notice it again. But as time went on, I noticed that the same old pattern repeated itself over and over again. So I would, start a new project and I'd try to sabotage myself. And then I would be at the closing point of a project, like almost there, almost finished, and then I'd sabotage myself, or I'd try to. Now, of course, as I said, I know that about myself, so I don't let that happen. But I wanted to share this with you because perhaps you are in the same boat. Perhaps you have a tendency, perhaps not exactly the same as me, but you probably have a tendency to sabotage yourself as well in certain manners. Yeah, perhaps you do it in the midpoint of a journey, of the creative journey, or whatever you're doing, or perhaps you do it even before you start the project, or perhaps you do it like me, close to the end when you're 98% finished, or perhaps you do it after you're finished. You finish writing the book and you're like, nah, this isn't good, and you throw it out. So, everyone has a different pattern to it. But what my recommendation to you is that notice what your pattern is. Really try to be cognizant and conscious of how do you do these creative journeys? How do you live your life? And this isn't just in our creative journeys, it is in general in our life. I'm the kind of person who, if I'm doing a meditation routine, or if I'm doing a fitness regime, or if I'm trying to build a habit and I'm like, all right, I'm going to do this for 21 days, for the next 21 days, I notice that I'll do 19 days and then I'll sabotage myself. Yeah. And so it isn't just about the creative journey. We kind of do it. If you do it one way, if you do one thing one way, you probably do everything else the same way as well, right? And so I really implore you to kind of observe yourself and notice, how do I play out my resistance routines? How do I play out my self-sabotage routines? What are my patterns? And as soon as you know your patterns, you know when resistance pipes up, it's just a pattern. You know that it's just nonsense. You know that it's not true. You know to just keep on pushing through it, keep on going, keep on trudging forward, and eventually you're going to get over it. And the same thing happened to me as well. I finished the 40,000 words of the self-love book, and I look back upon it and I was like, you know what, this is actually pretty good. All right. So I'm going to edit it and I'm going to publish it. I'm not saying it's the bestseller. I'm not saying that it's the best book written on self-love, but it is my book and I like it. And this is my pattern again. I finished something and I'm like, oh, yeah, that was actually really good. I want to do it again. So notice your patterns, notice how you behave in your creative journey, and then kind of make sure that you realize this is going to be your pattern, not only with your creative journey, but everything else you do. So now you can just keep on moving forward and keep on noticing that. And then when it does pipe up, you just ignore it, or you just kind of push it away, or you talk to it and say, you're crazy and I know what I'm doing, because you do. All right. I hope this makes sense. I hope I was able to explain myself to you. If you have any questions about this, comment below and I shall do a follow-up video. Again, thank you so much for your support, and I shall see you the next time around. Bye for now.